Hi, I'm Mrs. Mercer, and I will be teaching your Sunday lesson, Level 8, Day 1 today. In the following slides, the goal is for your child to read the sound that each letter makes and to do this as quickly as possible. If your child or student makes an error, you'll say, let's trace. You would say, for example, this is the letter A, which says ah, and then you can either show the keyword slide or say apple. And then you're going to want them to trace it 3 times on a rougher surface with these 2 fingers, and they would say A says ah, A says ah, A says ah. Okay? So feel free to pause the video if your student or learner needs more time. I'm going to click through quite rapidly. For time's sake, I'll try to pause a little bit. It's not necessary that they say the keyword. They can if they would like. That's just there as a reference for any errors that may come up. Sorry for that background noise. Apparently someone's doing laundry. Okay, so now we're going on to the spell sound section. If we were in class, they would have their student notebook and it would be formatted like this. You can use any paper that you have on hand. If you don't have any paper, you can use the notes section of your iPad and write on there. So I'm going to say the sound, they will repeat the sound, and then they're going to say and write it at the same time. Okay. First sound is, they'll write right here, I. They will repeat I, and then they will say I and write the letter that goes with that sound. They will do that same process with all the following letters. D, R, Ah, Ah, X. Feel free to pause at any portion of the video if your student needs more time for a sound. The error correction for this section, if someone writes down the wrong letter for the wrong sound, you kind of want them to do their own correction. And so you would, for example, say, I see, I wanted B, B. What letter makes the B sound? So hopefully they will, oh, okay, I know what you're talking about. And then they will say B. Okay, right. B makes the B sound. Okay. If you have this, cross it out and write B for B. Now, write 2 more times for extra practice. Because if it's something they made an error on, we want them to get extra practice. If they were in small group, the whole group would all also write it 2 more times. Okay, so that's what the error correction will look like. If they don't give you the correct letter, then you can go ahead and give them that information and have them make the correction. Okay, so now the student is going to read one column of the words from the next page. Make sure they put their fingers underneath each word. If they make an error, say, let's trace. Okay, we do a lot of tracing if we make mistakes, and even if we don't. So what you're going to say, they're going to look at the word. Say the word was tan. You want them to look at the slide and see the word that they need to trace. And then they're going to say each sound, tan. They'll blend at the end. We're going to do that 3 times for extra repetition and practice. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video and give your child time to say all of these words to you. Okay. Now I'm going to review touch spelling. Some of you may have seen other videos and you might, say, yes, we know how this works, but I'm not sure exactly where everybody's starting with these. So an example of touch spelling, if you're a right-handed person, you would have your pen in this hand and you would touch spell with this hand following the left to right sequence of our words in our language. So if you were spelling tan, you would, if I said tan, you would repeat tan, then you would touch spell tan, and then you would touch spell and write a little harder to do. If you were left-handed, now this is going to be really hard for me. So you would have your writing instrument in this hand, and then you would touch spell following the same sequence, but you would start with your thumb so that it follows the left to right sequence of how our words are in our language. So then they would go Okay, so just how touch spelling it works. Okay, so we're on the spell words section. So this is where, if they had their student notebook, they would write in this section here the following words. I'm going to dictate these words to the learner. They're going to repeat the word. They will touch spell the word, and then they're going to touch spell and write the word while sounding out aloud. Okay, so first word, cup. They would repeat cup. They would touch spell up, and they would touch spell and write cup. Now, if it's a word that has one sound that has 2 letters, they still just have one finger per letter. So if it was pay, it would be P-A, because they should know that the 2 letters that make the A sound at the end of the word are A-Y. Okay, so now you have the process down. I'm going to repeat all the words. You may pause for extra time. Remember, I say the word, they repeat, then they repeat and touch spell, then they repeat, they touch spell and write. Cup, bay, mop. If you need to pause at any time. Hit, sad. Sight word, do. Remember, a sight word will not sound out. Mud, hay. Remember how we spell A when we hear it at the end of a word. Dot, fin, rag. Pause to make sure your learner has enough time to write all the words. Now we're going to check our words. If you made an error on any of the words, just cross it out, do not erase it, and then write it 3 times for extra practice. The first word is cup, bay, mop, hit, sad, do, mud, hay, dot, rag. Okay, so now we're going to the spell words, phrases, and sentences section. I'm going to dictate some sentences as a whole sentence, not word by word. The learner is going to repeat the sentence. They're going to tap one word per finger. Then they're going to check for capitalization and punctuation. And then they're going to read what they have written back to you. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Okay, so they will write these sentences in this section, the spell words, phrases, and sentences section. Okay, so they're going to repeat the sentence. I'm going to say, I'm just going to do an example. Sam can run to the bay. The learner is going to repeat, Sam can run to the bay. Actually, I kind of said that word by word, so I'm going to say that differently. Sam can run to the bay. And the students will say, Sam can run to the bay. Then they can tap one word per finger. Sam can run to the, now if you run out, then you go right back to the pinky, bay. Sam can run to the bay. Okay. Then they're going to write each sentence, tapping one word per finger. Next sentence, do not hit the cat. Repeat, do not hit the cat. Then you need to tap one word per finger, then write it. Okay? Now, make sure you take the time to check your sentences. Do you have the correct capitalization and punctuation for these sentences? Look back at what you have right now and pause the video if you need to make corrections. Okay, so now I want you to look. Is this what you have written? Do you have a capital on Sam? Do you have a period at the end of the sentence? Sam can run to the bay. Capitalize D for do not hit the cat, and a period at the end. Now take the time and read those sentences back. Read those sentences aloud. Okay? Okay, now we're going to introduce a new sight word. Now, if you had other lessons, you know how we do this, but if not, we're going to say the sight word aloud, and then I'm going to have the learner repeat it. But instead of tracing and saying the sound, they will trace and say the letter names, because sight words do not follow some of the rules. They do not sound out correctly. And then the learner will repeat the word before and after tracing. Okay? So this new sight word is I. Well, when I is by itself, it is capitalized. Sorry for the background noise. But so now they're going to trace. I says I. I says I. I says I. Now they're going to write that 3 times on right here. I says I. If you have a red pen or red marker, that would be great. Have them do it while they're looking at that slide if you can. If you don't have a red pen, then just do what you can. Now we're going on to the next. You can pause to give your child more time to write. Now our next sight word is of. Okay, and then we're going to trace. O-F says of. O-F says of. O-F says of. Now they're going to write that next to the I's in the new materials section. Have them say O-F says of every time they write it. Okay, and then another one. And. A-N-D spells and. Says and, I'm sorry. A-N-D says and. A-N-D says and. So trace 3 times, then write 3 times. Pause the video to give your student time to write. If you notice that your child is forming letters incorrectly, please try to do those corrections now. It is harder to reteach once habits are established. So try to make all letters from the top down if at all possible. If you could take the time to make those corrections now, it could pay off a lot later. Okay? Now to the final section of our lesson is the read aloud. Okay? So this is the end of our lesson. You may pause your video and read your read aloud section. Thank you and have a great day.